I want to start by saying that Zelos has made a great dress watch, and that's something that's rare to see at this $750 price point. I spend most of my time reviewing affordable watches, and so very often what I will see is a great dress watch for the money. There's always that qualifier there that implies that in order to keep the cost manageable, corners have been cut, and often things that are considered essential to a dress watch have been sacrificed. But given the price point that these other watches that I've reviewed operate in, that's okay. They're still great watches for the price. And so when I got this watch in from Zelos, it made a very big impact because there's no qualifier here. This is everything that a dress watch should be. Hey guys, welcome back to Just the Watch. My name's Dave. I live in Japan and I love to collect affordable watches, and micro brands offer so much detail and so much interest in the affordable watch space. And one of the most innovative and interesting micro brands out there has to be Zelos, which is based in Singapore. I've reviewed a lot of dive watches from them before, but the Nova has always been Zelos' true dress watch. The Nova is a slim 37mm dress watch that has a huge presence on the wrist with its beautiful dial. And there's a lot of different dial options, but I went with one of the standard versions, I guess you would call it, from this drop in the salmon color. And that's because Zelos is debuting what is a new technique for them when it comes to dial manufacturing. And that is that they're doing a true engraved guilloche dial that uses CNC machining. Most of the time in this price range, you're going to see a stamped pattern rather than an actual engraved one. And it makes a huge difference in the actual texture of the dial. Full disclosure, this watch was given to me by Zelos to keep, which is why you saw the paid promotions flag in the beginning of this video. However, on the watch itself, I did not receive any additional compensation from Zelos, nor did they have any control over the content of this review. With that out of the way, let's jump in and take a look at the Zelos 2 Nova. Rather than start with an arbitrary price point and do everything that they can to get a watch down to that level as good as possible, it seems like Zelos has instead started with asking, what makes a great dress watch? Let's make a great dress watch and then try and get the price as low as we can while still maintaining everything that a great dress watch should be. First and foremost, a dress watch should be slim and small. This watch comes in at a 37mm case size, which is perfect for a dress watch, but the slimness is what really makes this special. The case itself is only 7mm thin, and even factoring in that beautiful high-domed box sapphire crystal, the total height still only goes up to 9mm thick. And while those dimensions are impressive, they're also considered essential to what a classic dress watch should be. Dress watches are supposed to be unobtrusive. They're supposed to be able to slide underneath a dress cuff, which normally means that they've got to be under 10mm thick. And so if you're creating an affordable dress watch, typically that means that you've either got to go with a quartz movement or an inexpensive and unreliable Chinese mechanical movement. But rather than accept those compromises, Zelos instead went with the excellent and well-proven ETA 7001 mechanical movement, which is an incredibly slim movement with an amazing history and heritage behind it. This Swiss movement has been in production for over 50 years and has found its way into a number of luxury watches, including watches from Omega and Nomos. And so it's really cool to be able to get your hands on it in this watch from Zelos at this price point. But I think the thing that makes this watch truly special is the dial. A dress watch should be above all an elegant and beautiful timepiece that can accompany you on formal occasions. And for the dials on the Nova 2, Zelos has done something truly unprecedented in this price range by creating a guilloche pattern that has been engraved onto the dial rather than embossed or stamped. This creates a much deeper, much more impactful visual image that is truly stunning to behold in person. Traditionally, guilloche watch dials are created using a process called engine turning, which is done by hand by a master craftsman. It's an incredibly labor-intensive process that often will take hours at a time to make a single watch dial, and a slight mistake means that you have to completely scrap the dial and start over. And because of that, truly engraved guilloche dials are typically incredibly expensive. It would be completely impossible to get an engine-turned guilloche dial at this price range. So in order to accomplish this, Zelos has turned to technology and used CNC machining in order to do the engraving. So the engraving here is done by a machine that's controlled by a computer rather than by hand, which enables these dials to be produced quickly and accurately without mistakes. and it produces a result that is far closer to the labor-intensive guilloche process used in luxury watch dials. And all of the other dial elements also live up to this high standard. The hour and minute hand are perfectly proportioned, sharply cut, beautiful Dauphine-style hands that have a wonderful bevel on them. Zelos has sectored off the dial with a ring around the middle and then the hour markers on the outer side of that ring. The hour hand is proportioned such that it reaches exactly to that inner ring, while the minute hand reaches all the way to the edge of the dial, where there are finely printed minute markers that are worked into that guilloche pattern. And this is another area that really highlights the precision and the geometry in this guilloche pattern. The swooping lines and these swirls in that geometry somehow come together to create 60 precisely positioned plots around the edge of the dial. And that minute hand reaches all the way out to strike each one of them. The silver Arabic numerals and sector lines are all applied to the dial and complement the light play that's on display with that guilloche work. These dials are truly stunning and the highlight of the Nova 2 range, in my opinion. The way that it sparkles and catches the light as you move your wrist is a true visual celebration that completely embodies what you would hope for in a dress watch. But this watch is not just about the dial, it really is the complete package. The slim case with its triangular shaped lugs is beautifully crafted and really evokes Zelos' own personal sense of style. Even while this watch has a classy and vintage feel to it, it also manages to evoke that hyper-modern industrial design language that Zelos has come to be known for. The case is beautifully polished with a stepped effect leading up to that high-domed sapphire crystal, and the trenches cut into the side of the lugs add just another beautiful design flourish. Flipping the watch over, you'll get a clear view into the tastefully decorated ETA 7001 movement. This is a hand-wound Swiss movement that has 42 hours of power reserve, a 21,600 BPH beat rate, with a stated accuracy of an average of plus or minus 7 seconds to a maximum of 25 seconds per day. One thing to keep in mind with this movement is that it is a non-hacking movement, so pulling the crown out will not stop the second hand, which will make it slightly more difficult to precisely set the time of the watch, but that's a feature that's less essential on a dress watch than it would be on a tool watch, and something that I'm completely happy to accept given the other features of this movement, including its 2.5mm thickness and the reliability that a movement from ETA offers. And for all of these factors, everything that we've talked about so far serves to make this a great dress watch, period. But it by no means makes it a perfect dress watch. There's a few areas that I think could be improved and a couple of design choices that you probably should be aware of if you're going to consider purchasing this watch. For me, the biggest letdown here is the strap that's included. It's just that I don't think that the visual style of this strap and the kind of large buckle really fits with this watch. It is an incredibly comfortable, very high quality Horween strap. And Horween leather is some of the most supple and flexible and comfortable leather out there. It really does feel amazing to put this watch on and to wear it on your wrist. But that kind of basic vintage style stitching at the top of the strap I don't think really suits a dress watch like this. And another potential problem here is that they also went with 20mm lugs, which I feel like proportionally looks a little bit large on a 37mm watch like this. But that's a decision that I'm torn about because 20mm is my favorite lug size. I have a ton of straps in 20mm, so it makes switching straps around far easier on this watch. That said, I do think a 19mm or an 18mm width would actually proportionally look better with this watch. Overall, I feel like this Horween strap just looks a little bit oversized compared to the watch itself. I did play around with a couple of straps from my collection, and the best match that I found was actually from another Singaporean brand, Invario. They make some wonderful vegetable tanned Italian leather straps that have a more dressy aesthetic and also feature a sharp taper on them that I think just really wears a little bit better on this watch. And so I guess in that sense, I do appreciate that this watch does come with 20mm lugs because you're going to have a lot of great options for finding straps that will kind of complement the watch better. And that makes my biggest complaint about this watch also the easiest thing to actually fix. The second major concern with this watch is going to be legibility. A dial like this with delicate applied silver polished indexes kind of creates the perfect storm in which things will tend to disappear. In pretty much all lighting, I would have to struggle to find an angle that would really make those numerals pop. I know that in most of the shots I've been showing so far, those numerals really shine and pop off the dial, but that was with some very specific lighting angles that I chose so that you could actually see the numerals for this review. In real world situations, it's almost this camouflage effect where that swirling pattern and reflectivity of the guilloche just causes those numerals to completely disappear. The hands are easier to pick out, and most of the time, even though you will have a difficult time reading the individual numerals, you can still see that there is a numeral there, so they kind of function like hour plots a lot of times. This might seem like a case of choosing style over function, but when it comes to a dress watch where style really is the point, I think this is acceptable, but it's still going to be a concern for a lot of people if high legibility is something that you value in a watch. And speaking of style, there was one minor area that I was kind of confused about, and that was with the design of the sub-seconds hand. This is something most people are never going to notice, but the sub-second hand is just a flat hand. It looks a lot less elegant than the beveled hands on the hour and minute hand. And it just makes it look a little bit cheaper by comparison if you actually ever notice it, given that it is still a very small hand. But I would have still liked to have seen a matching bevel on that hand like the hour and the minute hand. One other design choice that I noticed in the photos and that you probably also noticed in some of my videos is that there is an open hole on the center of the dial where the minute and hour hand connect. Because this is a watch that features a sub-seconds hand rather than a central seconds hand, the pinion is left uncovered here. This is fairly common with sub-seconds hand watches. Either you're going to leave that hole open or you're going to put some kind of a plug on it. And I think it's kind of a matter of personal preference which one you like. But in person, when you're looking at this watch, unless you have extremely sharp eyesight, you're not really going to notice that. That was something that immediately jumped out at me in the first product shots that I saw, but once I had the watch in hand, I didn't notice it at all. The last and final concern is that the crown, being a delicate and small crown for a dress watch, while appropriate visually, is difficult to get my fingers on and to actually wind. And this is particularly annoying given that this is a hand wound only movement, so you are going to have to wind it on a regular basis. Again, I feel like this just sort of comes with the territory with a dress watch, because if you put a larger crown on that, it's really going to disrupt the look. But what was also odd, and something that I've only experienced on a few watches before, is that there is a lot of tension when winding it, and the crown actually springs backwards a little bit when you let it go, which overall made for a somewhat unpleasant winding experience. But again, I'm not sure how you would really address that without putting on a larger crown that would disrupt the design. Still, overall, this is a great dress watch without any qualifications. And if you do want to add a qualification and talk about the price, I'd have to say that this is a fantastic dress watch for the money. As usual, Zelos is giving you far more than any of their competitors will offer you at this same price point. Again, you can find a lot of cheaper dress watches that are great for the price, but for a little bit more money, you're getting a lot more watch and getting rid of almost all of the compromises that other cheaper watches would have to make. But the final thing to keep in mind is that because this is Zelos that we're talking about, there is a high risk of these watches selling out immediately upon release. And this watch will be released on July 5th at 11 p.m. Singapore time. So if you're interested in this watch, I would strongly recommend that you are there on time and get ready to purchase it immediately. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Let me know what you think of this watch. If you're planning on purchasing one, drop me a comment down below. Let me know which one you're most interested in, and happy hunting. Now, if you are too late to snag one of these watches, you can always head over to my website at justthewatch.com and pick up yourself a new t-shirt as a consolation prize. I've got designs like this for sale. Check it out and help support my channel. But that'll wrap it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later.